Welcome back to our second session for the day. The second session is by a very close friend of mine. He's a brother and a mentor, and that is Johan Steyn. Johan Steyn is a smart automation and artificial intelligence thought leader and a management consultant. He's the chair of the special interest group on artificial intelligence and robotics with the Institute of Information Technology Professionals South Africa, and he writes in his own personal capacity. Now, this presentation was pre-recorded, but Johan is available on this session, so he will be able to answer the questions after the presentation is done. So we will go straight to it.
And it's a great honor to once again speak at the AI and Healthcare Summit, and to Zenzele and his team, who has been doing amazing work in the background to get this conference organized. Thank you so much, and well done. So I would like to talk to you about the topic that you see on the screen: computerizing the brain, the next frontier in healthcare. So just a quick view of the topics I want to touch in this short 20 minutes. First, I want to just speak about the fact that we have been trying to peer or to look into the skull of other people for thousands of years. Then I want to talk about what medical care currently does, namely, we use things like MRI scans and other technology from the outside to look into the brain. But we are getting to a place more and more where technology may allow us to look at the brain from the inside out. Then I want to talk about the fact that this brain computer technology is really almost like the gold rush of our era, looking at where it's going to take medical care and the potential money that organizations can make out of that. And then I want to touch briefly on Orwell, one of my favorite authors. And as you know, in 1984, his famous book, he thought about the thought police. So what if governments or others can actually read our thoughts because of the medical implants in our brain? And then I'm going to conclude my talk and then have a look at some of the questions. And having said that, please add your questions or comments as I speak in the chat box so that we can try and get to it toward the end of the talk. So just a little bit about myself. I am aligned with and involved with the Institute of Information Technology Professionals of South Africa, or the IITPSA, where I head up both the Gauteng chapter and also the special interest group on AI and robotics. And if you look at their social media feed, or mine for that matter, you will see that we quite regularly have interesting guests on our webinars. In fact, the next one that we will have Dr. Jacques Ludic, who is the previous speaker at this event. And then if you want to be able to follow my work and contact me on social media, a good place to go is my website, which is aiforbusiness.net. And then just the last slide on marketing is I produce a podcast where I just essentially read some of these articles that I've written. And again, at my website, you can look at the articles that I write weekly in Business Day, and quite often these days for Fin Week and for Brainstorm and for others. So we'd also love for you to make contact with me and let me know what you think about some of these articles. But that's enough marketing for now. Let's get into the talk. Imagine you are part of a hospital review board and you hear that one of the local doctors did the following. He or she used a crude instrument and began scraping a hole in his or her patient's skull. They don't use anesthetics or sterile products, and they actually are doing this operation not in the hospital, but in a cave somewhere. People would be aghast, but this is exactly what doctors did in centuries and perhaps even thousands of years into the past, using crude instruments to open up the skull, to study it, but also to try and relieve pain. We call these operations, these ancient operations, trepanation. It was sometimes used for healthcare reasons and often for kind of witchcraft. But the fact that I'm making is we as humans have for thousands of years been very interested to open up the skull and to see what's on the inside. Surprisingly, archaeological finds show that many of these ancient patients actually survived these operations. But these days, thank goodness, we have a lot more technology, sterile environments, very trained doctors in order to make these or to conduct these operations in a very safe way. Workings of the human brain in the modern era has been studied for a very long time. We hear about technologies like MRI or CAT scans where machines can actually, through signals, scan the workings of the brain, or for that matter, other parts of the human body from the inside out. And those kind of machines have become very complex and very accurate. And many people I know, and I'm sure some people you may know, their lives have been saved because doctors have been able to look at what's happening inside their bodies or inside their brains, and they could pick up things like that there might be tumors or other things, and then they know where and how to operate and what to expect once they open up the skull. But we essentially have not been able to look at it from the inside out, and that's where this technology is going. The latest technology in brain reading is the so-called brain-computer interface. The brain may be controlled by a variety of elements, all of which can be manipulated by devices implanted in the neural network. In the realm of what they call neurotechnology, its presence is now a new form of neural integration. So this is kind of the science fiction of the past, but we are getting to a point where it's possible to implant devices into our brains, and not even through making an operation or opening up the skull. We actually read about small devices, almost like the size of a hair, human hair, that can be inserted into the brain through the skull. So you can have local anesthesia. You don't have to go for a massive operation. So just imagine that, and imagine where this technology is going. But we have to regulate it, and I will expand on that a little bit more during my talk. South African-born Elon Musk. You most likely either love him or hate him. I love what he did in the early days with PayPal, and what he's doing more and more now with Tesla and SpaceX, in particularly SpaceX. He's really pushing the boundaries, but he's also very interested in artificial intelligence. And if you Google him or look at his talks on YouTube, he's got a very, I would say, realistic, if not somewhat dystopian view on this technology. And we have to hear what thinkers and entrepreneurs like him are saying. Basically, if we don't control this technology now, imagine what it can do into the future for our children. Now, his one company, Neuralink, which he and others founded in 2016, aims to create a brain-computer connection by implanting electrodes into the brain. And in the near term, Neuralink plans to develop devices to cure major brain disorders. But imagine in the long term, the objective could be human improvement. And here we hear a word often called transhumanism. If you Google this, there's the one term called post-humanism, but transhumanism is really one I'm interested in and have been writing about quite a bit. And essentially, in a nutshell, this is the view that through technology and through recreating artificial limbs and kidneys and other things, we can essentially greatly extend the lifespan of human lives, and also really impact the quality of human lives. That we might even get to a point where we will no longer die. It sounds a bit like science fiction. I think right now it's a lot more talk than reality, but there's a very good chance that technology like Elon Musk's Neuralink and what other companies are developing can actually really impact humanity for the greater good. The other problem with this is also that potentially only a small amount of people will have access to this technology and will have the wealth to afford it. So what if there's a small little group of people who live many more years and have much, much greater quality of life, and you have just all the rest of us? And here we can also bring in the conversation about unemployment through automation technology and the like. We have to debate and think about this, because this is a reality. Not only our financial future, because of the impact of smart automation, but even our biological future. Another topic to address here, potentially around ethics in particular, is what if we can custom design babies, where you take the DNA of the male and of the female, and you pick up, either by analyzing it or obviously speaking to the father and mother, that there could be cancer or heart problems in the past, in other words, in the fathers and the grandfathers and mothers and so forth. But what if we can now engineer those illnesses out of the baby while still in embryo phase? But what if we can also custom design a baby where we say we want a 6'3" tall boy with brown eyes and so forth? Again, what of the people who don't have access to this information? So let's keep an eye out on Elon Musk and others, but let's really hope that this technology is constantly being used for good and that it is regulated effectively. Let's talk a little bit more about this inside-out view in the realm of neurotechnology, that term that I've already mentioned. Imagine things like nervous system injuries, often irreversible and difficult to treat. But imagine we can use this technology, or for people with paralysis for that matter, because of the implants in the brain, to almost like bypass it, almost like you would do with a car engine of sorts, so that those parts of the body or the brain that's not working accurately can actually almost be kick-started or circumvented, if you would. Hybrid brain-machine systems are likely to become increasingly common in the future. Numerous neurotechnology firms in various phases of development are trying to do anything from forecasting an athlete's potential to treating depression. Scientists predict a big advance in neurotechnology thanks to the development of ultra-flexible brain-machine interfaces that might reduce the immunological response of the patient. It has the potential to be a game changer for many patients, as well as having far-reaching potential societal consequences. Brain interface technology is still in its early stages, but it is vital to investigate the ethical issues as devices are created to ensure that they are not harmful. We would not want scientists to create a new gadget and then discover that it has significant harmful or ethical implications. Questions like these are not just for scientists or engineers or even professional ethicists. They are part of a wider discussion in society over the use of personal data and when patients should be free to decline such treatments. It seems that the development of brain-computer interfaces is the gold rush of our era. Large organizations and governments are investing billions into this new age of what I call technological colonization. So imagine the control that organizations like Google and Facebook and others can have over people. I mean, they already have so much of our data. They already know so much about us, also know what we think. Now they're going to say, we're going to make it easier for you rather than typing onto the keyboard like we've been doing for the last, 50 years or so, or these days, rather than speaking into your smartphone. What if you can just think and you can do a Google search? You can just think and add somebody on Facebook. But Facebook and others can already not be trusted with our data. So imagine all our brain data, all our thinking is something that they can use. So this gold rush is something we have to look at. Yes, there's a lot of money to be made, but how do we keep on doing good and protecting others, especially the future of our children? Now to one of my favorite books, as said in the beginning, George Orwell. In 1948, he published a book, 1984. And the book was a lot to do with the Soviet Union at that time. But through the years, a lot of people, whether it's filmmakers or other writers or thinkers, have used the ideas of Orwell. I mean, he famously said back in the day, what if we are looking at the television, but it's also looking back at us? I mean, that's already a reality. There's cameras on most of our smart TVs, so that it can pick up when we are giving it instructions or when we are playing games and so forth. But the TV is looking back at us. So Orwell said that many, many years ago. He also spoke or wrote about the so-called thought police in 1984. And what if we get to that era where my thoughts are private? It's the most private part of me. But what if a state or other organizations can actually read what I'm thinking, and imagine the amount of control and abuse that can happen to the larger population if we can not only judge them by the actions, but actually know what they are thinking. And with that short little talk on very big topics, I've just scratched the surface, but hopefully I've given you a lot to Google, go read on and go research. But these are important topics, I believe. Technology can greatly impact healthcare, and in other words, our quality of life for the good, but that same advancements can also create a lot of ill, and we need to check it. And with that, again, Zinzelian team, thank you so very much. And if we have a few minutes left, I would like to have a look at some of the chats now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Johan. I'm glad you are here. That was very interesting. I think I was writing a lot of notes here, and there's a lot of things that I need to research there that you're talking about. But if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Johan is here to answer any questions. I know that load shedding has affected us, in a very bad way, but nevertheless, we will continue. Okay, Johan, I don't see any question at this stage, but Johan will be able to respond via text as well on the chat, so you can respond. So if you have questions, you can still ask him. Thank you so much. We'll take a short break now, and we'll join in the next session. Thank you.